importantly, look at what else they're getting. 8 to 10 plus hours of sleep every single night. No alarm clock for most of the day. No commute, no work stress, no family obligations during training time. Training is the one thing they fully control, so they're protected. Yes, the overall environment is stressful, but during and around their training, it's actually lower stress. They're not answering emails. They're not worried about their boss or their mortgage or their kids' soccer practice. Recovery isn't about perfect conditions. It's about removing competing stressors from your training. The average person's daily life is actually more catabolic than prison science. The final factor is knowledge transfer and culture. The prison yard becomes a university of bodyweight training. Older inmates teach younger inmates. Students get passed down directly. There's no YouTube algorithm confusion, no conflicting information from 50 different fitness influencers. Just proven methods that work, taught person to person. This creates a collective knowledge base about what actually builds muscle, stripped of all marketing and bullshit. Direct mentorship with immediate results. If something doesn't work, just build it out. If it works, everyone learns. We have infinite information, but no wisdom proven. Prisoners have limited information, but proven wisdom. So what does all this mean? Prisoners prove that muscle growth actually requires just 5 things. Sufficient volume through frequent training, progressive tension added however possible, adequate calories and sleep, the supplements, the perfect macros, the expensive equipment, optimal programming is optimization, not foundation. The fitness industry sells solutions to problems prisoners never had. And most people's lack of results isn't from lack of resources, it's from lack of execution. Here's your challenge. You don't need to learn from prison conditions, but you can adopt the and train more frequently, even if it's just 15-minute sessions daily. Master bodyweight progressions before adding complexity. Create genuine purpose for your training beyond just training. Stick to one simple program for at least 6 months. Focus on adding reps or difficulty, not changing exercise. The real question is, can you build muscle with just push-ups, pull-ups, and discipline? Prisoners prove you absolutely can. Most of us just won't, because it's easier to buy another supplement, download another program, or convince ourselves we need better conditions than to simply execute the basics with relentless consistency. The paradox of prisoners building muscle in terrible conditions isn't really a paradox at all. They build muscle because they do what actually matters. We fail because we confuse complexity with effectiveness. The way prisoners train reminds me a lot of Soviet principles, which is why I recommend watching this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Creativity is not something I wait for. Very Creative Cloud is designed to be almost like a playground. They provide you with some inspiring tools for you to start. It allows you to disappear. It's about the making. A very Creative Cloud gets me into the zone.
The Soviet military dominated global strength competitions for decades, and there's something fascinating about their legacy. Even today, the world's top UFC fighters and Olympic wrestlers disproportionately come from former Soviet regions. The Soviets discovered 3 training techniques that fundamentally changed how we understand human strength. What's interesting is that their approach contradicts almost everything modern gyms teach you. Most people believe getting stronger requires destroying your muscles until they can't function. The Soviets proved that's actually backwards. Their method was built on a completely different system across 3 categories: training protocol, recovery strategy. But first, you need to understand the Soviets didn't view strength the way we do. They treated it as a skill, not just a physical attribute, and that one conceptual shift changed everything. Let's start with their most counterintuitive method, something called greasing the groove. The basic principle sounds almost absurdly simple. Perform multiple sets throughout your day, using moderate resistance, never training anywhere close to failure. Your immediate reaction is probably skepticism. How does avoiding failure build strength? Here's the framework they use. Think about learning to shoot a basketball. You don't practice by shooting with your arms literally different. You repeat the movement pattern hundreds of times. The Soviets applied this exact logic to strength development. They practiced movement patterns repeatedly, systematically training their nervous system to activate more muscle fibers simultaneously. Here's what that looked like in practice. Soviet soldiers might perform 5 push-ups immediately after lunch, another 5 reps an hour later, 5 more mid-morning. This pattern continued throughout the entire day. The volume accumulates significantly, but no single set ever feels demanding. Why does this work? Your nervous system controls muscle activation through electrical signals. Consistent, fresh practice makes those neural pathways faster and more efficient. After several weeks, your nervous system can recruit substantially more muscle fibers the same muscular structure, dramatically increased strength output. Their second core exercise was kettlebell snatches. You grip the kettlebell, swing it between your legs, then explosively drive it overhead in one continuous motion. You don't necessarily need an actual kettlebell. Any heavy object that allows similar movement patterns works. Soviet soldiers performed hundreds of consecutive reps, not to build but to develop specific endurance. This training triggers something unique physiologically. It simultaneously develops cardiovascular capacity while building strength. It fortifies tendons and connective tissue. And critically, it teaches your body to function as an integrated system rather than isolated muscles. But there's a third component most people completely overlook. Surgeons are obsessed over making joints and connective tissue as resilient as the muscles themselves. Because powerful muscles attached to weak joints is essentially a guaranteed injury. Their approach was straightforward. Pull-ups and dips for upper body structural integrity. Carrying heavy objects like sandbags for grip and postural strength. Core exercises to protect the spine under load. The objective was simple. Construct a body capable of handling any physical demand without breaking down. This is where 99% of people fail. They train muscles exclusively while ignoring everything else. Soviet soldiers could perform at maximum capacity day after day, specifically because they built comprehensive structural resilience. For your implementation, this means prioritizing fundamentals, pull-ups, dips, loaded carries, core work. These movements create lasting strength that persists even as years. Now here's where their frequency protocol gets interesting. Soviet soldiers trained 6 to 7 days a week, but, and this is critical, they didn't simply hammer themselves relentlessly. They used something called weight loading, called maximum effort. The following day would be minimum intensity, light running or gymnastic movement patterns. Special forces units often train twice daily, morning and afternoon sessions. But again, both sessions weren't high intensity. Perhaps morning training was light movement to activate the nervous system. Afternoon would be heavy loading. Here's what this means for your application. You don't need complete rest when you do absolutely nothing. On recovery days, go for a walk, do light mobility work, engage in low intensity movement. This maintains blood circulation to your muscles. It actually accelerates recovery rather than slowing it down. The recovery protocol, which brings us to the second critical method. The Soviets understood something most people completely miss. Training alone doesn't create strength. Strategic recovery creates strength. They developed specific recovery protocols that were considered equally important as the training itself. Their most famous recovery tool was a Russian sauna with a very specific protocol. The key is alternating between extreme heat exposure and ice-cold water immersion. Here's the physiological mechanism. When you sit in intense heat, your blood vessels dilate significantly, allowing increased blood volume circulation. When you immediately plunge into rapidly, this dramatic oscillation, a mechanical pump pulls metabolic waste products out of muscle tissue, which creates a sore, heavy feeling after hard training. But there was they used something called venin, bundles of birch branches. They immediately strike the skin surface. But the mechanism is solid. It dramatically increases blood flow to the skin surface and underlying muscle tissue. However, sauna protocols weren't their only recovery strategy. The Soviets rejected the concept of passive rest days. They believed in active recovery, light movement that's completely different from your intense training sessions. Swimming, casual basketball, light jogging. The movement intensity was low but it didn't stress the body, but maintained continuous circulation. Why is this important? Movement, even at low intensity, keeps blood pumping through muscle tissue. When you remain completely sedentary, this process slows considerably and recovery extends longer. For your implementation, this means walking on hot days, light stretching, and shifting of accessories. any activity that moves your body without approaching significant exertion. Now, the Soviets added one more element to optimize. They used specific herbal compounds. And no, not what you might assume, not steroids. They used adaptogenic herbs to help the body manage stress more effectively, because stress hormones actively destroy muscle tissue. Soviets extensively tested rhodiola on soldiers and Olympic athletes for decades. Their findings were significant. This herb helped people maintain alertness during severe sleep deprivation. It improved mood regulation during high-stress situations. It helped athletes maintain steady maximum nutrition. Modern research suggests it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that breaks down muscle tissue. It can improve endurance capacity and reduce perceived effort during exercise. These aren't magical supplements. They simply help your body adapt more effectively to training stress. You can find rhodiola at any supplement retailer. The nutrition protocol. Now we've covered training methodology and other stuff, but there's still one essential component. The nutrition protocol. Soviet nutrition wasn't complicated. They didn't count every calorie or weigh every portion. They ate real food that's available. Three core principles guided their entire approach. First, the kasha principle. The foundation of every meal was kasha. This is buckwheat groats, but predominantly buckwheat. Why buckwheat? Has a low glycemic. It provides steady energy release for hours, which is essential for strength development. Buckwheat is also loaded with critical minerals, magnesium, which enables proper muscle contraction, iron, which carries oxygen. It contains more protein than most grain sources. Second principle, their primary protein source. The Soviets didn't have protein powders. They consumed real food, primarily meat. But their most important protein source is something called kefir, essentially cottage cheese or quark. It's extremely high in casein protein, which digests slowly. Unlike whey protein that enters your system rapidly and depletes quickly, casein releases amino acids gradually over hours. Soviet athletes consumed this before sleep. This maintains a continuous protein supply to muscle tissue throughout the night, preventing muscle breakdown during sleep when you're not eating. Third principle, they matched food intake to training demands. During intense training phases, they ate substantially more. They weren't concerned about gaining modest body fat as strength methods were increasing. Their largest meal always followed their harder training session. That's when muscles are most receptive to nutrient absorption. The implementation? I know this is comprehensive information. You might want to rewatch this and take notes. And here's the important part. You don't need to implement every single Soviet protocol perfectly. Extract the components that fit your lifestyle and start there. The core concepts: keep strength as a skill, require neural training, prioritize active recovery over complete rest, and fuel your body with real food matched to your training intensity. If you want to dive deeper into Soviet training methods, check out the video on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. When it comes to making progress in the gym, there are two things that matter more than anything else. Two things that will decide whether you actually build muscle or spend months spinning your wheels. Those two things are your intensity during each set and how long you've been training consistently. That's it. Not your split, not the perfect exercise plan, not the supplements you're taking, just intensity and consistency. But most people get this completely wrong. Overthinking the wrong things. If you spend any time online, you've seen it. People endlessly debating which split is best. Push-pull legs, bro splits, upper-lower, etc. Whether to train 6 days a week or 4. Whether to use dumbbells, barbells or machines. And sure, these things can make a difference, but only the basics are already there. Because here's the thing, most people aren't working hard enough to even matter. They overthink it and under-deliver the effort. They'll spend hours scrolling through fitness content, comparing routines and programs, yet in the gym, they stop as soon as the set gets uncomfortable. They give up right when the real work is about to begin. What real intensity actually means. Here's something a lot of people don't understand. The rep that hurts isn't the one to avoid. It's the one that actually creates progress. Most people stop a set as soon as their muscles start burning a little. The moment the weight feels heavy or the movement slows down, they rack the bar and walk away. Then they wonder why they're not growing. But real progress starts after that point, when your body's naturally to quit. That's when the muscle is forced to adapt. Training with intensity doesn't mean screaming or throwing weights around. It means staying locked in, focused, and pushing your muscles close to failure, safely, with control, every single set. It means the last 2 or 3 reps should be hard, slow, and uncomfortable. That's what creates muscle growth. Why control beats complexity? Here's something funny. You could take 2 people, one who trains with moderate intensity but follows the strict 20%, and another who trains with average exercises but gives 100% effort in every set. The second person will win, every time, because intensity makes your program work. Without it, your perfect split doesn't matter. The person who trains with passion, focus and drive, even if their program isn't optimal, will always see better results than someone who has a perfect no intensity behind it. Intensity is what tells your body, we need to grow. Without that signal, you're just moving weights around. What happens when you actually train hard? When you start training with true intensity, you realize something important. You don't need endless sets and exercises. You don't need to do 20 sets per muscle group. Because if you're actually pushing each set close to failure, if you're giving it your full effort, you physically can't do that much volume. You simply won't have the energy for it. Most people who think they're training hard will be shocked to realize how much further they could push. If you truly gave everything in your sets, mentally and physically, you'd hit the point where even 3 or 4 hard sets per muscle group is enough for each workout. That's the difference between just going through the motions and actually training, understanding fatigue and recovery. When you train with high intensity, recovery becomes a real part of the process. You can't just go from one set to the next in 30 seconds and expect the same performance. Hard sets demand real rest. That's why you'll notice advanced lifters resting anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes between heavy sets. It's not laziness, it's strategy. Your muscles and nervous system need that time to recover so you can push hard again on the next set. Think about it. If your goal is to lift as much weight for as many reps as possible, why rush? More rest equals better performance, and better performance equals better results. When you start respecting rest, your workouts stop feeling like cardio sessions and start feeling like training sessions. Focus on a few key exercises. You don't need 20 different exercises for every muscle group. Pick a few that you can do safely, consistently, and with good form, and stick to them. For example, for chest, maybe it's barbell bench press and dumbbell incline press. For back, maybe it's pull-ups and rows. For legs, squats and leg presses. Focus on 1 to 3 solid exercises per muscle group and pour all your effort into those. When you stop switching programs every week, your progress compounds. Your body gets better at the movements, you can track your performance, improve it, and actually see results over time. Consistency in exercise selection helps you apply one of the most powerful training principles: progressive overload, the key to growth. Progressive overload simply means doing a little bit more over time. More weight, more reps, more control. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be adding 2.5 kilos to the bar or 1 extra rep with the same weight as last week. Those small improvements add up. That's why I track every workout, every set, every weight, every rep. Because if you're not tracking, you're guessing. When you start writing things down, you can actually see progress happening. It gives you direction and motivation. And it turns your workouts from random effort into a clear plan for growth. Help structure your training for results. Here's a simple formula. Pick a few effective exercises per muscle group. Perform 1 to 3 high-intensity sets for each. Push close to failure. Track your performance. Rest long enough to recover. That's it. You do that consistently, you will grow. The reason this works is because it focuses on quality over quantity. You don't need to spend 2 hours in the gym to see results. You just need to make every set count. When you finish a workout and you know, truly know, that you couldn't have done another rep on those last sets, that's when you're training with purpose. Treat like it. Here's the second part of the equation: consistency. Intensity will make you grow, but consistency keeps you growing. You can have the hardest workouts in the world, but if you only train hard for 2 weeks and then disappear for 3, it doesn't matter. Progress requires showing up week after week, month after month. Even moderate workouts done consistently versus perfect workouts done inconsistently. Think of it like this. Small, steady levels of effort compound over time. It's not about what you do in one workout. It's about what you do over hundreds of workouts. That's why consistency is so powerful. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but it's the reason why some people transform their bodies while others stay the same. Bringing it all together. So let's recap. If you want real results in the gym, Not just small changes, but visible, lasting progress. Stop overcomplicating things. Forget the endless debate about which split is best. Forget about finding the perfect science-backed routine, because none of that matters if you're not training with real intensity. Train hard, push your sets close to failure, rest properly, track your progress, and most importantly, stay consistent. When you train like that, everything else falls into place. You'll realize you don't need to do 20 sets or 2-hour workouts. You'll realize that 3 to 4 brutally hard sets per muscle group can be more than enough if you actually push yourself. And you'll notice something else too, that training this way builds not just your body, but your mindset. It teaches you how to embrace uncertainty, stay disciplined, and trust the process. Because at the end of the day, that's what fitness is really about. Showing up, giving your best effort, and refusing to quit, even when it gets hard. If you remember one thing from this video, effort and consistency beats everything. The best program in the world won't save you if you don't train hard. But even a simple one will change your life if you pour your heart into it and stay consistent. So stop overthinking, train with purpose, track your progress, recover well, and stay consistent. Do that, and you'll never have to wonder why you're not seeing results again.
For maintenance that keeps your Toyota performing at its peak, trust Toyota University-trained service experts. Our commitment to training means you can let us care about the details.
There are 5 crucial bodybuilding principles that must be followed to maximize your muscular development. This video isn't about how to get stronger. It isn't about how to get both bigger and stronger. This video is about maximizing pure muscle gain.
Chapter 1. Tension is king.
Okay, so the first non-negotiable principle is that tension is king. At this point, tension is universally recognized as the primary factor driving muscle growth. Tension is the force that our muscles experience when they stretch and contract under load. If you think of each muscle fiber as a rope in a tug of war, stretching and pulling on the rope is tension and causes a biochemical signaling cascade that ultimately tells the muscle it needs to grow bigger. So, how do we maximize tension on a muscle? Well, answering that question leads us into the 4 remaining principles.
Chapter 2. Use bodybuilding technique.
To ensure maximum tension, we need to perform exercises using a specific type of technique that I'm calling bodybuilding technique. This technique is different from powerlifting technique. Today, I noticed just how few people, nobody was taking all the boxes. The first box is lifting tempo. For bodybuilding, you generally want a controlled 2 to 4 second negative. If you're used to just letting the weight free fall, this will feel quite slow at first. But this is important because research shows that the lowering phase, or the eccentric, is very likely more important for muscle growth than the positive phase, or concentric. Yet, for whatever reason, most people lift as if the opposite were true. Most people just try to get the weight up and then forget about lowering it back down, especially as they get tired toward the end of the set. But this is a mistake, because the reps toward the end of a set are the most hypertrophic, and the negative is the most important part of each rep. So you really want to control and resist the negative, especially on those last few reps. New research also indicates that for muscle hypertrophy, slower eccentric movements should be paired with faster concentric movements. This means that while you want to go nice and slow on the negative, you should be more forceful and explosive on the positive. So if I'm doing a hack squat, I'm thinking control, control, control on the way down, and then speed as I explode on the way up. On lateral raises, I'm resisting the weight on the way down, and then driving the dumbbells up and out forcefully on the positive. The same tempo should apply to most exercises in your routine. Next, bodybuilding technique means using a proper range of motion. Usually this means using a full range of motion, so you get to at least parallel on squat type exercises, ideally a bit below parallel. You bring the dumbbells all the way down on presses until you feel a nice deep stretch in your pecs. Pull-ups, you go all the way up and all the way down. There is some important nuance. Recently, studies have sometimes more effective, but only when they're done in the stretched aspect of the lift. In other words, the stretched part is more hypertrophic. The bottom half of a squat is more important than the top half of the squat. So you You may not necessarily always need to use a full range of motion, but you do need to get the muscle sufficiently stretched to maximize hypertrophy. So, if you're not feeling a deep stretch at the bottom of the range of motion, you should try to find that stretch by going a bit deeper. If going deeper causes you pain or serious discomfort, you can work on any flexibility or mobility deficits, or you can find a different exercise that allows you to reach that deep stretch. It really is that important. Another thing I've been noticing a lot at the gym is that most people do quite a lot of cheating on their form. Probably too much cheating to muscle. Use the weight without actually to the target muscle. For example, if I curl the weight up while using it back and forth, I'm shifting tension away from the biceps and onto the lower back. So we want to ensure that the target muscle is tension, which means
Chapter 3. Effort.
you need to push sets hard. And unfortunately, research consistently shows that most people simply don't push their sets hard enough to maximize muscle growth. It's very common to see people hitting the gym year after year, but making no noticeable progress. In most cases, this isn't because they've maxed out their natural potential. Instead, it's usually because they simply aren't pushing their sets close enough to failure to stimulate new hypertrophy. So, how hard is hard enough? How important is going to failure? Well, since I published my last video on this topic, there's been a bombshell of a new meta-analysis that has the science-based lifting community buzzing, and I need to update a few things. First, I want to quickly announce that I just launched my new Pure over on YouTube. We're really prioritizing in this program. In main recovery, we're focusing on choosing exercises that are safer to fail on, and that by the end of the session. For example, here's a sneak peek at week 1 of the program. We start with 3 sets of cross-body lat pull-arounds, which offer an insane stretch on the lats. We do low incline Smith machine press for the pecs, less demanding free-weight barbell press, hip abductions, leg press, again, another low-impact exercise, without generating fatigue. And then we finish with some face pulls and cable crunches. So by prioritizing exercises that are less costly recovery-wise, we're able to push them much closer to failure without feeling completely wrecked. If we order the full training plan, 50% so this is a new meta-analysis which found that as you get closer and closer to failure, the more muscle growth you tend to see. And this is their bombshell figure that you've probably seen floating around online. Here on the x-axis, we have reps in observer. So this point here, if you tried, this point would be 2 reps shy of failure. This would be 10 reps shy of failure, all the way down to 22 reps shy of failure. And then here on the y-axis is muscle growth. And as you can see from the trend line, as you get closer and closer to failure, you see more and more muscle growth. In fact, as you go from 2 reps in the tank to 0 reps in the tank, muscle growth really spikes up. So naturally, a lot of people who endorse high-intensity to-failure training have been using this study to make their case that if you want to maximize muscle growth, you need to push sets all the way to failure. And I do think they have a pretty good case for that training approach with this study. However, what I haven't seen them showing is this analysis from 2022, which pulled 15 studies based on slightly different inclusion criteria and came to a different conclusion. Quote, there is no evidence to support that resistance training performed to momentary muscular failure is superior to It seems that depending on which specific studies you include, how you read the statistics, you can either come away from this body of science thinking that going all the way to failure really is a lot better for muscle growth, or practically speaking. Well, this is my takeaway. Do 2 to 3 sets on most exercises and take the last set all the way to failure. For the first 1 or 2 sets, leave 1 or 2 reps in the tank. All sets, you most likely to get a fatigue level, which means you get less reps and hit less volume as a result. As we know from other research, volume is also important for muscle growth. A full deep dive into volume summary up here on the screen that you guys can pause and read for more detail on that. So leave a few reps in the tank for the earlier sets and send it to health in the last set. Also pretty much always leave a rep or 2 in the tank for compound exercises like squats, bench presses, and deadlifts, even on the last set, simply because going to failure is so disproportionately fatiguing that it's not worth the risk on these movements. But that's also part of the reason why those exercises aren't emphasized in my Pure Body.
Chapter 4.
To build bigger muscles, you need to give them a good reason to grow. If If we keep doing the exact same thing week after week and apply the progressive overload principle, we need to increase some training variable from week to week. There are a few main ways to apply progressive overload specifically for bodybuilding. First, you can add reps at the same amount of interval, 3 sets in week 1, 12 in week 3, and then 10 reps, and then start adding reps again. This type of progression is usually better for moderate. You can also add weight. For example, for hack squats, you can do 3 sets of 6 reps with 3 plates per side. 1, and then add 10 pounds to each side each week, and then build up to 4 plates per side. 6 reps. This type of progression is usually better for lower to moderate reps. Eventually, you'll have to not only add weight or reps, and in this case, you should focus on improving some aspect of your technique to try to control the negative better, improve your range of motion. I still count this as progressive overload because it increases tension on the target muscle. For the final option, you can try to improve your mind-muscle connection by really focusing on feeling the target muscle working better. Research has shown that the mind-muscle connection reduces hypertrophy in some cases, as effective as length of reps or technique, still worth keeping in mind, especially on isolation exercises where traditional overloading becomes impractical at a certain point of strength development.
Chapter 5. Choose high-tension exercises.
Because tension is king, we need to make sure that we're choosing exercises with high levels of tension on the target muscles. This is why I may lose some of you, so I want to reiterate that this advice is for hypertrophy. So while it is true that you can build a great physique by only using barbell exercises like squat, press, and deadlift, especially pull-up and free weight work, this approach is too basic to maximize. That's for 2 reasons. For one, there will be smaller muscles that go understimulated if this is literally all you do. Muscles like the biceps, side delts, hamstrings, and calves won't be getting enough love. And secondly, some of these exercises don't have the best stimulus to Israel, and it essentially means exactly what it sounds like. The stimulus part, meaning how much tension, the exercise is, how hard it is to recover. For example, the deadlift offers a high stimulus, a lot of tension on the erectors, which is great, but it also carries a very high bodybuilding perspective. So for pure hypertrophy, you want to at least aim toward exercises that have a high stimulus to fatigue ratio. It doesn't mean that you exercise is bad. Generally speaking, if you can pick an exercise that offers just as high or higher stimulus or less fatigue, that's going to be a good pick. Movement-based exercises are some of the best options for this. They provide massive tension for less fatigue than free weights and also tend to be safer to take to failure. Research also shows tables tend to have fantastic resistance profiles throughout the range of motion. For example, a standard free weight dumbbell curl, the biceps reach their highest level of tension when the elbow is at 90 degrees and experience virtually zero tension when the bicep is fully stretched at the bottom. Motion, including in that important stretched position at the bottom. I don't want to overstate the superiority of machines and cables. Accessible, they tend to have better strength carryover, and they may activate smaller skate parts. And I'm still deadlift, and I think that strength can fit neatly into that hypertrophy if programmed correctly. Doing a program purely dedicated to muscle growth, that's a recovery wrinkle we don't need to worry about. Plus, we already know that having some exercise variety and novelty is good for muscle growth, and doing the same exercise month after month and year after year can get stale. There are a few other things that can muscle growth that are relatively it's simply just a way of organizing your workouts throughout the week, and as long as it fits your schedule, it allows you to push your sets hard, do enough volume, and recover between workouts. Body routines, lower splits, leg splits, and even splits are all also, it seems to matter somewhat. Is generally better. So be careful not to rush through your workout, as it can limit your recovery in sets. And then there are specialized techniques like 6 of these techniques in any series. Subscribe. The program to kickstart your growth, check out the Pure Bodybuilding program over on jeffnipper.com. If you pre-order, you'll not only get 30% off, you'll also get the book sent to you right away. It covers everything you need to know about training for muscle growth, and you'll get the Pure Bodybuilding nutrition book right away to get your diet on track. You'll also get 2 versions of the Pure Bodybuilding program, upper lower versions of the program. After the pre-order week is over, you'll just select which one version of the program you want, and you'll see each version of the program also includes a prioritize whatever your individual beat point is. I included the dedicated arm work because it's a really fun workout, great pump, it's definitely not like any of my other programs, and I've done both other exercise demos specifically for this program that each come with specific coaching cues and tutorials from me. There's a lot of new exercises in here that I think you guys are really going to love. So you can click the link over here next to my head if you want to check that out. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe.